Welcome back, friends. This is Yvonne Davis, and today I'm going to be looking at the March full moon eclipse. So, as you've probably heard, March is definitely the most intense month of the whole year because we've got the two interplanet retrogrades, which are Venus retrograde, and then Mercury is going to go retrograde. And we've got two eclipses as well. So, the first one coming up is on March 14th. I think that's probably the more difficult one because it's a full moon eclipse. It's a total full moon eclipse, and the sun is conjunct Saturn, and the full moon is conjunct the south node. The south node has an energy very much like Saturn. So at both ends of this eclipse, we have this very constricting energy that is Saturn's energy. So Saturn is always about restrictions, limitations, cutting back, creating responsibilities, obligations. Sometimes it can feel like a burden. Sometimes it can feel like an authority figure coming down hard on you or limiting or restricting you in some way, some kind of constriction, some kind of release, letting go. Now, the full moon also means endings. So you combine that with that Saturnine energy and the total full moon eclipse conjunct the south node. And as you can imagine, it's getting pretty intense. So let me go ahead and pull up that chart. All right, so what we see here is this March full moon eclipse, March 14th. It happens around midnight. So for some people in some parts of the world, it will actually happen on March 13th as they get into the late evening. So in the part of the world where I'm at, which is Mountain Time, it's at 12:55 a.m. So just after midnight on March 14th. So it's around that time, and you can do the calculation for your own time zone, but it'll either be late on the 13th or early on the 14th. And what we see here again is this Sun conjunct Saturn at the time of a total full moon eclipse. The sun is right on the north node, and the full moon is on the south node. And so that's what gives it that energy, that constriction energy. So that may be difficult. Again, the full moon often brings endings, so that can also be difficult. So if you've got this energy of ending, culmination, fruition, releasing, and then it's also conjunct the south node, which again magnifies that energy of endings and releasing something from the past, something you no longer need, and has that energy similar to Saturn. You can see how this planet is probably going to eclipse something or someone out of our lives. That's often what eclipses do anyway, but this one seems unusually strong in that direction. So in a lot of ways, it just depends on how it's landing on your chart. Speaking of which, I did do a political reading that I put on my Patreon channel. So if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up. It's only $5 a month. You get access to the live Zoom meetings, and you get to ask whatever questions you want. Sometimes I do personal readings, sometimes I do political readings, or sometimes both. But this past time I did political, so the recording is up there if you want to check it out. Only $5, and you can join future Zoom meetings that are live. So this one does have some things going for it, which is that there is a trine from Mars to the north node and the sun and Saturn. And as Mars moves forward, it will make exact trines to Saturn, the sun, and the north node. Although the sun actually moves faster than Mars, so it probably won't make an exact trine to the sun. But it is in a wide trine at the time of this eclipse. So that's favorable. The moon will also well, actually, the moon will also sextile Mars just before it reaches its exact opposition to Saturn and the sun. So yeah, that trine and sextile with Mars is favorable. So that will help because Mars gives us the energy to move forward and make things happen. And so when it's in an energy of a trine and a sextile, that helps the energy to move forward in an easier way, more harmonious way. It creates windows of opportunity. And the trine to Saturn means that although there may be some kind of restriction and eclipsing out with this full moon eclipse, the trine of Mars to Saturn means that the actions that we take can be long lasting. So that helps to mitigate whatever is challenging about this full moon eclipse. The other really important part of this full moon eclipse is the Venus retrograde, which will go all the way back into Pisces, make another conjunction to Neptune, the North Node, the Sun, and Saturn. And then she will station direct and move across those degrees again and conjoin Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune again. And then she will return to the point where she stationed retrograde, which turns out to be the same degree as the new moon eclipse on March 29th. That's interesting that both Venus retrogrades at those degrees and Mercury. You can see here Mercury at 9 degrees, 31 minutes of Aries is also going to station retrograde. So they both stopped at that degree where the new moon eclipse is going to hit on March 29th. So there's something happening in that area of our lives ruled by Aries and ruled by Pisces that is trying to change our lives in an important way. It's trying to help us to release something that is old and no longer working and begin to create something new. Speaking of which, those of you who still come and watch my videos, please go and check out my new channel. It's called The Magical Arts, and I do a lot more stuff. That doesn't mean I'm going to quit doing astrology. It's just that I'm starting to put more of my efforts into that new channel because it's growing, whereas this channel has not been growing for a long time. And I've been trying to reorient the algorithm to understand that my channel is about different things now, general astrology, etc. But it just hasn't been working. So if you're still coming around and watching these videos, please check out my new channel, The Magical Arts, and see what I'm doing over there. You can keep watching my astrology here, no problem. Or you can join my Patreon. You know, there's lots of opportunities. And the other channel is free, so just head on over there and check it out. I'll put a link below so you can get to it easily. But that would support me a lot, and maybe you find it interesting. That would be wonderful if you do. And again, you know, the Patreon, I continue to do the political stuff that I used to do, but I'm just doing that for my members now. All right, so that pretty much concludes what is going on with this specific chart. And basically, once we see it come into full force, which usually happens within 4 to 5 days prior to the actual full moon, or sometimes as much as 4 to 5 days after the full moon, that's when it's most potent. It's basically a bell curve. So it starts out about 5 days before, moves up to the peak when it's exact, and then moves down and out. And so within that, let's say 10-day window, a week to 10 days around the full moon is when you will see events that are getting triggered by this full moon. The eclipses have a longer story, but because this full moon eclipse is so incredibly powerful, I think it's extremely likely that we will see an actual event that coincides with the time frame of this full moon that will show us what is being eclipsed out. When something is eclipsed out, that can be, it for one thing relates to the area where this is happening in your chart. So again, you want to know where is Aries in your chart? What house does it rule? Where's Pisces? What house does it rule? And where is Virgo? What house does it rule? And I would also suggest checking out the area of your chart that is ruled by Cancer, because that Mars is playing a really important role. So it's basically 4 houses. Later on, Jupiter will play a more important role this summer when Jupiter and Saturn make their final opposition, but Jupiter will actually be in Cancer by that time. So I personally don't think it's playing a huge role right now, so that's why I'm not bothering to look at it at this moment. Maybe in 2 weeks when I look at the new moon eclipse, I will talk more about Jupiter, because then they'll be in signs that are sextiling each other. For now, I really don't see it playing a huge role. And also with Pluto, we do have a sextile between Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, applying a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So you also may want to check out where Aquarius is in your chart. So just start with where the eclipse is actually landing in Pisces and Virgo. What axis of your chart does that rule? Then look at, what about Aries? What house does that rule for you? What about Cancer? And then Aquarius. I would say in that order. Weight them in that order. And you know, I know a lot of people like the all signs readings, but based on the fact that my channel is not getting as many views anymore, it's just way too much time for me to put into doing these readings, but I'm continuing to do them for my loyal followers and viewers. That's why I'm leaning toward putting more effort into my other channel, The Magical Arts, and my Patreon channel for people who really like the work that I do and continue to follow me. So anyway, I think that's about it for this chart. And keep in mind that this is eclipse season. So we'll get another eclipse 2 weeks later on March 29th, which will be the new eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries, the place where Venus and Mercury stationed to go retrograde, and they will be retrograde during that time. And they'll be back in Pisces at that time. And then a day later, Neptune will move into Aries. And that's super interesting because Mercury retrograde conjoins Neptune at exactly 29 degrees, 59 minutes of Pisces, which is the absolute final degree of the zodiac. Final degree and final minute of the zodiac, with Neptune in Pisces, which is the sign that rules Pisces, and Mercury retrograde conjunct Pisces at that final degree, final minute. I find that very interesting because it's like we have to go back. We're eclipsing something out, and yet we have to go back to the past to finish something up, reconsider something, pull something back from the past and rework it. I know for me, certainly it has a lot to do with my channels and the work that I've been doing. This has been an ongoing process for a long time. I've been seeing it in my own chart. It matches what's happening in my life. It's no shock to me. Doesn't mean it's easy, but you know, that's the way life is. Sometimes things get eclipsed out. Then you go and you create something new. And so if that's what's happening for you, the best thing to do is to embrace it and move through it and move on to the new things in your life. So this is going to be an exciting month, a month full of change, but also can be very disruptive. So that can be challenging. So again, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll check out my new channel, The Magical Arts, and or become a patron. You can always become a patron for free. It doesn't give you access to all the things that paid members get, but still you'll know what's going on. So that's good. And sometimes I post for all of my patrons, even the free ones. So that's worth checking out so that you know when I'm posting there. All right, that's it for today. And I'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.